day one. I haven't ever seen a coach come off practice field on day one in shorts that he didn't like what he saw. I really enjoyed what I saw out there. I think we've got a lot of guys out there. We've got a lot of talent out there that can run, and I think that was really obvious. And when you're in shorts and it's pass skill and there's not any hitting and you're running around, there's no offensive line, you kind of get into a little false deal. But I thought we got some guys that can run around, and some guys did some good things out there. We are a long way away from being the polished team we need to be. We have a quarterback that's never taken a snap here, and Jeff. We've got Ryan, who I thought did some good things, but still timing, passing game, all that, we're a long way away from being where we need to be. But I do like the way they worked. I like the way they went out there and the way they worked hard. It was kind of a break to go from 7 to 9 o'clock at night, because it felt like it was about 60 degrees out there compared to how it was during the middle of the day. So I certainly think that helped the tempo and mindset and the way they're working right now. But we'll learn about this football team as we go. They were out there today. They had a lot of energy, a lot of passion, flying around, running around. But we'll find out where we are kind of day 5, day 6 when we start putting on pads. And that's when you really start to find out what type of character your football team has, and what type of team you're going to have for the course of the season. So like what I saw, but it's still early, day one.
You know more than I, but just from my limited viewing, seems like Jeff was doing a little bit more intermediate short routes, and Ryan was really trying to air it out, at least toward the end. Was there anything to that, or just kind of what it was going with the drill?
No, it's kind of what they end up giving you. I mean, all of a sudden the defense is in press man coverage, and you take a shot, and Jeff goes in there, and it's zone coverage, and he's not forcing the ball down the field and taking what a defense gives them. But I think Ryan threw one deep ball he shouldn't have thrown, but then he threw 2 balls that he got some one-on-one looks, and I thought did a good job of taking it down the field. But for Jeff, he just didn't have the opportunity, and playing quarterback is more about taking what a defense gives you and reading the defense than it is just trying to force it. I thought Ryan threw 2 really nice balls down the field. Both of them were complete. Threw a couple of nice balls down, but that was when they went man-to-man, when they went one-on-one.
I guess day one's a good day that you can see your newcomers and what before they hit that brick wall and what they have to offer. Who are some guys that kind of stood out to you?
First time I've seen Alex Woodall throw a football. He's been here a year and a half. First time I've seen him throw. Was impressed with what he did. Was impressed with the way he throws the ball. He had that shoulder surgery, wasn't able to throw when he came in here. Had the labral tear, had the surgery, missed spring practice. So this is the first opportunity I've had, and I liked the way he threw the ball. Everybody else, it's like I said, it's basketball on grass. It's playing football in your underwear out there running around. So it's hard. I like the way some of the receivers run. Jaquise Dancy's got some great speed, but how they all going to play when they put on pads, still way too early to tell with that. And I'd like to hold my reservations, because I've tried to make early calls in the past, and it's normally the guys you don't like in shorts that you love in pads. And we're not going to a 7-on-7 tournament. We're going to a football game, and so we're going to have to find out who's ready to put on the pads and play at this level, and who's got that toughness it's going to take.
You had a lot of guys in the spring that were banged up. How would you characterize the overall health of the team so far?
Right now, great. I don't believe we have an upperclassman that's missing anything. I don't think we have. I'm trying to think. I got a freshman that hadn't had a physical yet. It's waiting for some blood work to come back. I had two guys that ran this morning that we held out, but I think the overall health right now is excellent.
That being said,
probably as healthy as we've been.
That being said, about depth chart and running around the underwear, you don't know a whole lot. But
right.
When the D-line did finally go out there, one surprise to me was to see Cedric Johnson with the group of ones. Was that something that you expected to see on day one?
No, we're going to roll Cedric and Tyler Porter and some of those guys in there. Aaron Brown right now is trying to finish a class, so he wasn't out there. He's not out there tonight, and so those guys are going to roll. And we got to find out which of those guys are ready to step up and play, because all of a sudden you have a couple guys that gave us and D'Angelo Brooks and a couple guys inside that gave us some depth and some quality minutes a year ago are gone. And so is that going to be Cedric? Is that going to be Jordan Bradford? Is that going to be Tyler Porter? Is that going to be Aaron Brown when he gets back? But we're rolling them out, letting them compete right now.
Coach, you mentioned yesterday almost having to take a breath with how high the excitement was with this program, but not that it would damper expectations at all, but just to get back to the grind, actually get back out on the field. Did that help to maybe focus you guys a little bit more, block out some of the noise votes and the new end zone and everything?
Yeah, I mean, because it really tells you where you are. I mean, it really tells you where you are. And sometimes as a coach, you have a tendency just to look at the high side. Well, if everything comes through, he could be here. And if everything comes through, but you get back out here and the reality, I mean, we're not polished on either side of the ball. We're making some mistakes. We're not a unit yet. As I've talked about before, how's the leadership going to come together? So many variables have to happen. There's definitely, when you look at it, you can go, wow, yeah, if everything goes right, it's going to be a really special year. But we got a long way to go for everything to go right. I can tell you that. We got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of camp to go through. Like I said, everybody the first week of camp, high energy, upbeat, positive. But what kind of football team are we going to have on day 10, day 11, when guys are dragging a little bit, when they're sore? What type of football team we're going to have then? That's when you're going to find your leadership, and that's when you're really, I think, your football team is made, is in the middle of camp, and you really start to identify what type of backbone you have as a football team. Because no matter how talented you are, not everything is always going to go your way. Then you're going to need that leadership, and we're going to have adversity a number of times this year, and how we're going to handle it is going to be critical to how we go through some of the highs and lows of camps.
Cantrell was at media day, but you have another good safety in Xavier.
Mm-hmm.
He had a really good year last year.
Yeah.
How can he elevate his game even from last year's performance?
Xavier?
Yeah.
Well, I just think, I mean, there's some people are going to try and put it on numbers. Well, if he doesn't have more interceptions than they had a year ago. But, you look at it, a big part of that last year was people didn't have any of us on film. And now they've got a year of film on us, a year to study us, a year to put game plans together. And I think you're going to see people probably aren't going to take as many shots down the field. There'll be more ball control, things like that. So I don't think it's in his numbers. I think Xavier gets better every time he gets out there. Every time he takes a rep, he watches film. He may be one of the biggest students of the game that we have. The way he comes in, the way he handles his business off the field, how mature he is. He may not have an interception, but could have a phenomenal year for us. And so for him right now, I just think it's to come out here and keep working and keep getting better on technique and some of the things that he's doing. But I think he's a special player, because he's not just a talent, but he's a dependable, accountable, reliable, trustworthy guy that just is going to work. He's going to do everything he has to do to become a better player.
Is that the ultimate sign of respect when you see tape of him and teams might not want to throw against him because they know what he's capable in terms of being such a ball hawk?
Well, I think you better be careful if you throw that thing down the middle. You better be careful if you throw it up down the middle. And I'm sure people are going to watch films and with the numbers that he had. And this goes back to what I said. It's one of the challenges we have is how do we handle winning? Is he going to get frustrated game 5 and start trying to cheat, to try and steal an interception and then get beat deep? How are we going to handle that? And so I think there's definite respect. I mean, when you look at where he is, some of the national awards and recognitions, honors, I won't say awards, but national honors and recognitions he's gotten, he deserves every one of them for the type of year he had and how much he's progressed and the type of young man he is. And he's a 4.0 student, and he's, we all want our sons to be Xavier Woods.
When he came in, you came in at the same time, so you've kind of grown up together in a way. Was this how you saw everything playing out with like how good he could be and whatnot?
We knew there were some openings in the secondary. No, I didn't know he was going to be this good. I mean, I felt like he had a chance to be pretty special, but he's not taller than I thought. He's not faster than I thought. He's not those things, but what he is, he's got all those intangible things that you can't measure on a recruiting film. The commitment level that he has, and I will say the job that they do over at West Monroe as a coaching staff, when I look at Paul Turner, Michael Mims, Xavier Woods, the way they handle their business and they're accountable and dependable and reliable, those are all things that he's better than I thought he was going to be. I certainly would love to sit here and tell you, yeah, we saw that. But he's pretty special.
Not to diminish your words, but a lot of coaches will say, like, I wish I had a lot like a son like him, or more players like him. But
Yep.
what separates himself from maybe others, like some of his attributes and characteristics?
I think his work ethic. I think his commitment. He will be in here watching film. He will take film home. He will study his opponents. He will watch our by Sunday night, he will have seen the last 4 games of every one of our opponents. I mean, he watches film like a coach. I mean, he's a student of the game. He's passionate about it. I mean, and the commitment that he has to being great is where I have all the respect in the world for him as a football player. Yeah, he's tall, he's tough, he's athletic, he's all that, but he is as committed as anybody I've ever had.
You talked about Michael Mims. Then yesterday you alluded to that Lloyd Grogan will have a chance to wear some different hats.
Mm-hmm.
We saw some different looks from him even
Yep.
in day one. Is that kind of what you had in mind for him with what we saw today?
Yeah, kind of when we talked about the possibility of playing a little bit more nickel defense, like I was asked a question, we're going to move him to linebacker. I mean, that X position, if you want to call it a linebacker, when they're in spread, it's a nickel back. It's still a safety because when people get big, it's not like we're taking him to put him in the box to be ISO'd. Then you have to look at what are some of your other choices. But right now, I think Lloyd's a great athlete, and you got to look at him and say, we got to find a way to get our best on the field. And if your third safety is better than your third linebacker, then you need to play 3 safeties and 2 linebackers. And that's kind of what we started working at and looking at a little bit more.
And especially when you throw Michael Mims into that package, it's really like you've got 2 safeties and a linebacker out there.
Right. I mean, and when you look at him, because Michael's even moved into some linebacker, where he's moving inside a little bit. But I think right now we're just going to have to play with those guys and find that right mix and how it's all going to fit and how that depth chart is going to play out. And we're going to play with it from now until that first scrimmage, until we really settle in and say, okay, this is what we are. And then we're going to have a full week of camp and then a week of game time to really start to identify, kind of highlight and showcase what we're going to do.
I went over to the defensive line 3 or 4 times. Every time I was over there, Vernon was talking to one of the younger guys, like giving him a pointer or something. Like, I at least haven't seen it. I date back to high school when I started,
Right.
when I first met him. Is that something that you've noticed, just even dating back to spring ball, where he's taken more of those things?
A leadership
Yeah.
role, yes. And Kurt Hester rants and raves about the type of offseason he had with the same things that you talked about, the leadership and the way he's becoming more vocal. And it's like Kurt used the term to me, he said he is really, he has given up his selfishness and he is playing for this team. And the way he's committing himself and the way he's leading and all those things, it's been fun to watch the transition. There's a big difference between a freshman and a senior. And I say all the time, freshmen are learning, sophomores start to get it, juniors need to be no problems, and seniors need to be solving the problems. And that's kind of the transition that players go through. And you're seeing Vern take that step. And I really like the progress that he's making. I really like the team attitude that he has and the way that he's working. And I certainly hope it plays out for him on the field and he's rewarded for it.
One thing you can see on the first day of camp is the results of your summer workout program that Kurt Hester initiated.
Mm-hmm.
What were your thoughts on, you talked about some speed and some agility, but kind of what are your thoughts, and did any guy that was here last year have a marked improvement in speed or anything for you?
No, I think just the overall speed, and some of that is the development of these guys, the freshness of their legs right now, coming off. They just had a week off. They went through all some. They've been training for 8 months, had a week off. Now we'll get into camp and kind of start to beat them down a little bit, see how we're going to respond, and then we'll get them back towards the end. But I think part of that is the recruiting. When you look out there and you see guys like, when you look at Smith and, watch him run around and some of the things he can do, and Woodard, and, I think there's some, I sit there and look at Jackson in the secondary. I look at Ephraim Kitchen. There's some guys out there that are new additions that really bring an awful lot to the table. But I also think there's Paul Turner looked great. He looks healthy and running around. Carlos looks fresh. He looked really good. You talked about X and Kentrell and Darius Barnes, and you got some guys that have played out there too. So I think Kurt's done a phenomenal job, and I started my press conference with that yesterday because I don't know that we can minimize the job that he's done with this team, and not just their physical training, but their mental training as well, and that he pushed them to the edge this summer. And I think a lot of guys have gotten really mentally tough. You talked about Lloyd Grogan. He's a guy that showed up like, wow. It's good to see. So we'll tell a lot more when we put on pads, but I like what I saw tonight. I like what I saw.
One last thing for me, Jeff probably one of his biggest attributes is his feet. And until pads are put on, and he's a quarterback, he's probably going to be wearing some non-contact this fall and leading into game week.
Mm-hmm.
How do you prepare the team for his ability?
We're not. I made him live in the first scrimmage. I got 3 years of film of him running the ball at Florida. There are things that we have in our offense. Cody ran a long touchdown at UTEP. I mean, there are things we had. We'll just highlight it a little bit more. We'll just call it a little bit more than we did with them. It's not necessarily new or something we didn't have. It's just something that you're going to try, and there'll be some wrinkles. But we've all been in offense where you had a running quarterback and some different things, and we got a lot of coaches up there that have a lot of intelligence that have been around the game, and there'll be some wrinkles that we'll definitely add. But it's not a thing. I don't think we need to beat up on Jeff, just to get him ready to play. I think the way he's handled himself, I've really been impressed. And he's going to run the ball some. He's going to have to run the ball some. And a lot of it's going to be predicated upon what defenses do to us.